The House Judiciary Committee is still grilling FBI officer Peter Strzok behind closed doors following the release of several anti-Trump text messages. Here now, a member of the committee, Republican Congressman Steve King from Iowa. Thank you for joining us. I know there's been some new information, but let's get to the heart of the matter. When he texted his, whatever word you want to use, Lisa Page, we're going to stop President Trump, or stop Trump. What did he mean? Did he explain that?
Well, you know, most of what goes on in there needs to remain confidential, but I'll speak generally about the sense that I have, and I know it's already been, some of it's been put out into the press. It's this, that the contention that these personal messages were personal and there's no implication in there that showed a bias, and if so, he would have been professionally separated from such a bias, and it never would have changed the way that he made decisions in the investigations. That's actually what we're being asked to believe.
Do you?
I have a hard time getting my mind around that. I mean, I know a lot of biased people that are very biased, and I think if any of us are going to be honest, if we have a deep bias within it, we can't avoid it affecting our management decisions. We can't just divorce ourselves from that. And a bias deep enough that at least implied that he would want to stop Donald Trump from becoming president, that tells you that the selection of the priorities on the part of Peter Strzok had to have been reflected in his, that had to reflect the bias that he carries within him and that Lisa Page carries within her.
Quickly, there was one of your colleagues who said it would be one thing to say, as they did, that they can't stand Donald Trump. It's another thing to say we will stop him. It doesn't seem that there's a true explanation to that, and this, what has been told to the press, that this was an intimate conversation, doesn't seem to pass muster, does it? I mean, it doesn't sound like you're convinced.
No, I wasn't convinced, but I will say the question you've asked, though, does point to where there is a gap in this, and that is that if they were going to stop it, what was the action that they may have taken or intended to take?
Was that asked? Was that question asked?
You know, I'm not sure if it was asked definitively enough that we got a definitive answer. So, and that's why I asked, well, do we have a transcript of this? Because I want to go back and study the transcript in detail. I think we need to do that. It's there's a lot of little nuances, a lot of little small questions, a lot of short answers, and a lot of qualified answers. And it's very difficult to pull out of it just exactly what was said and stand here, of course, in the public after it's supposed to be a confidential meeting.
I'm afraid we're out of time. Appreciate your being with us.
And breaking tonight out of Capitol Hill, 9 hours and counting, FBI agent Peter Strzok, top agent. This person's name is so familiar to everyone, I think, across America now. He was central to the Clinton email investigation and the Russia probe. He testified today behind closed doors about those anti-Trump texts that were uncovered that he and his girlfriend Lisa Page, who was also working on the case, sent each other in voluminous amounts. So he was grilled during this closed-door session. House Judiciary and Oversight committees were in there. He reportedly defended those texts as part of an intimate conversation. Here now with more on what happened behind the scenes, the man who led the questioning today of Peter Strzok, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Bob Goodlatte. Chairman, good to see you this evening. Thank you very much for being here.
Great to be with you, Martha, and your viewers.
So thank you. So what did you hear in there from Peter Strzok today?
Well, it's a confidential briefing, but I can tell you this, that we're now in the 10th hour, and we have still many more questions to ask. However, unfortunately, the FBI counsel in the room has instructed Mr. Strzok not to answer many questions, and that's going to be a serious problem moving forward. So we'll be raising questions with the FBI and with the Department of Justice about why it is that their counsel is instructing Mr. Strzok not to answer questions.
Can you give us a sense of what kind of questions he declined to answer?
These are questions that are central to our investigation related to primarily, I mean, we're asking questions about his central role in both the investigations related to Hillary Clinton and the investigations related to the Trump campaign and so-called Russia collusion. And these are questions not about the substance of that second investigation, but about the process of his getting involved in that, and they're advising him not to answer those questions. I think that's inappropriate and certainly not helpful to our investigation in the Congress.
So I would surmise that the nature of those questions had something to do with the initiation of all of this and whether or not he authorized or initiated any informants to try to interact with members of the Trump campaign or to try to create a pretext for an investigation. Were questions along those lines answered today?
There are a lot of questions like that, and as I say, the FBI is instructing Mr. Strzok not to answer many, many questions. At this point, I can't get into the details, but it is a very serious concern.
Can you characterize his demeanor for me? Is that fair to ask?
Well, I think that one of the things I can say is that he has answered many questions regarding the hateful nature of many, many, many texts that he exchanged with Lisa Page. And in doing so, his answers to his explanations for those answers, those questions about that hateful attitude are not believable.
Yeah, you're referring to the text among many where he said that he would stop President Trump, and also the other pivotal text message where they discussed an insurance policy against the what they would saw as an unfortunate possibility that President Trump could become president. Did he refer to those as an intimate conversation that did not reflect on his work?
Again, I can't comment on the substance of his answers, but I can say that he had many, many other texts that are now available to the public where he uses many hateful comments, obscenities, not just about then candidate Donald Trump, now President Trump, but about other people involved in this matter and groups of people. And his explanations for those are not believable.
Yeah. We're going to look forward to that and also his public testimony, which we understand is coming. Before I let you go, the bill that was known as Goodlatte 2, immigration bill, went down today. But I did see you say that you felt that you had 223, I think, GOP votes in favor of this immigration reform when you took it across the two bills. Can you bring something together that can pass?
Well, we're disappointed that neither of those two bills passed, but the great news is that we now have 223 Republican members of the House, a majority of the House of Representatives itself, who have voted for one of these two measures. The first one got many more votes than the second one, and I know there are many members of Congress from different vantage points who are already talking about working together to find the votes to make some adjustments to one of those bills, probably the first bill that could bring us to a majority on one bill. That's the key. We shouldn't be voting on two bills, even if they're both my bills. We should be voting on one bill and not vote on it until we have that consensus.
We'll be watching that closely. Chairman Goodlatte, always good to see you, sir. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Martha.